start now, so we'll take our places. Thank you for coming. Tonight is the forum for the Lake Macquarie Mayoral Council 2024 election, which is on the 14th of this month. And I'm going to move on now and introduce the candidates and welcome them. Over on my far right there is Bryce Ham. He's vigorously campaigning somewhere else tonight, but he had his councillor representative here last night, and I'm sure he's busy campaigning well somewhere else, and may have to catch up with him over at the next meeting. The next candidate is Adam Schultz. He represents Labor, and he is an incumbent candidate. Are you standing for council as well?
I am.
Both, so if he doesn't get Lord Mayor, he's probably
insurance policy.
Very likely to get council. Next one is Rosemary Dawson, a true independent.
Yep.
She has been previously a councillor and has experience in the council. Next after that, we've got our timekeeper, and then Melody Harding for the Liberal Party. Welcome, Melody.
Thank you.
John Gilbert, previous councillor, 2016 to 2021, I believe. Experienced man, and he's standing for our town, our community. Our local community. Sorry about that.
That's right.
And this one here, I need to correct myself, it's Kate Warner, and she stands for Lake Macquarie Independence, and she's the one that gave us the presentation last night. She's one of the wonderful presenters. They're all good, and we thank her for coming again tonight. Now, I said we're from the Coorong Business and Community Alliance. Now, well, just if you don't mind, I'll just abbreviate CBCA, because it's getting a little bit hard for me to say that name too many times. Now, you're wondering what we do. Well, we do a lot of things for the improvement of the community. You've heard of the distribution priority area classification. That is an identification of areas that have short in GPs. Now, this is advantageous to a community if they're classified as a rural area, because that way there are more incentives for doctors to come to the area, such as co-payments and the allowance of bonded doctors. And a few years ago, Coorong was a metropolitan with a rural advantage, and that meant that we were able to get the extra incentives. For some reason, they decided Coorong was, and I'm talking about the local catchment area, Morisset and the surrounds, was reclassified as a purely metropolitan area. Well, the CBC decided to, along with others in the community, to lobby to get this reinstated to a metropolitan rural area, and we approached the federal member and to advocate to the health minister, and now our status is metropolitan rural. So we've got back that advantage again, and that's something we've done. Now, you remember Deves Road, how bad that was. We pressed very hard for many times, and were knocked back quite a few times, but if we keep persevering, because the CBCA doesn't accept no for an answer. And you can see that's been nicely fixed up. There's one or two little potholes there start to emerge, and we'll be onto that very shortly. But it's much improved. Now, even more so, we had a subcommittee to lobby for the lights, and we spent years lobbying for those. Here at the intersection of Alton Road and Freeman's Drive. We went and saw the state representative, that's Mr. Piper, and we went to the council, and we sent delegations, and eventually the council and the state government gave the council a grant, and now we have the lights. all helped by collaborative work from the CBCA and the community. Now, another thing we've done, down next to the park there was a 3-metre drop. You might, I don't know whether you've noticed it because it's not a problem now, because there were engineers went down, they all thought, well, we need to put culverts in and that, nothing ever got done, so we suggested that we have a guardrail put up, and we had a state member advocate for that, and then we've now got a $20,000 guardrail put up there, it's all safe now. Many other things we've done. Now, maybe you're wondering about the history of the CBCA. Well, years ago, 40 years ago, I attended the Currumbong Progress Association, and it was in an old wooden building up near the church here. And I hadn't been for years, and when I came back it had been morphed into the CBCA name, with Michael Chamberlain as the president for many years. And after he passed away, there were a couple other chair people, and in the end I've got the job, and well, I won't go into telling you how I got it, but if you want to come and see me after, I can tell you, and we'll also could draft you into an office here. We meet every Tuesday, every second month. We have a meeting in the same place, 7 p.m. in this community centre. Now, without doing too much talking and moving on, because we've got a lot to cover, I'm going to introduce our man here, Dr. John Hammond. He's the convener, and I'll pass it over to him for the next proceeding.
Thank you, Martin, and good evening, folks. We're very pleased to see you here. I'm not only John Hammond, I'm John Gilbert Hammond. John Gilbert, you got off to a roaring start. A couple of very brief rules to enable the meeting to proceed smoothly. The first is that we will use what we call parliamentary procedure, and that is that all comments, all questions come to the chair. And that enables you to be polite and me to be relaxed. And the other one, simple rule, is these candidates have come to us and they are our guests tonight, and we wish to treat them civilly, even though we might ask some hard questions. And I'm sure that knowing this community and many of you, that it will go very, very well. So those are the only protocols. A little bit different to last night because we have fewer numbers. Each speaker will have 5 minutes. After 4 minutes and 30 seconds, Seth will say the buzzer, and then another one at 30 seconds. And if you go a little bit over, I will at least allow you to finish with dignity, rather than just chopping you off. But don't go for too much overtime. At the end of each presentation, what we're doing differently tonight is that we'll immediately have 5 minutes of questions. And again, if we need to go over, we'll do that. But you'll be able to question with the freshness of the presentation in your mind. So, without further ado, first of all, I'm going to ask Martin just to test you to see whether you're completely tied to your notes. He's got a question which we may repeat if people start to forget, but to each candidate we would like you to somehow incorporate a response to Martin's question in your presentation. So, Martin.
Thank you, John. Now, just before we proceed, I'd just like to remind you that we're video recording this meeting, so just be careful. Anything you say will be recorded. don't think that'll be a problem. Now, candidates, if you are successful to be elected as Lord Mayor on the 14th, what will be your main priorities for the next 4 years, and how can these priorities be realistically achieved? You're up to invite.
Yeah, just to clarify a question. Lake Macquarie, is it Mayor or Lord Mayor?
Mayor.
Mayor. Well, let's try and elevate that at some stage in the next 3 or 4 years. Adam, thank you for responding. Adam Schultz of Labour. And feel free to sit down. That's the way you do it in the council. And it makes it easier for the cameraman. And Peter, thank you very much for being our microphone man. Let's welcome him. He's the first off the rank. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you very much. Adam Schultz, I'm Labor's candidate for Mayor of Lake Macquarie. So who am I? I'm 40. If I'm successful, I will be the youngest mayor in Lake Macquarie history, I believe. But I believe also that I'd be one of the most qualified. In terms of my background and experience, you know, if you're going for a job interview, you look at experience and you look at qualifications. So in terms of my experience, I've been on Lake Macquarie City Council as a Labor councillor for the past 8 years. I am the only mayoral candidate that has served as a deputy mayor as well. In terms of councillor experience, as I said, 8 years for myself, but there are other candidates with experience. So Rosemary here has 4 years, John Gilbert's 5 years, and Kate Warner's 2 years, 9 months, I believe. So there are other candidates with experience, but I believe I'm best placed, and I believe I can hit the ground running as mayor as well. In terms of my qualifications, another big component of who I am, I've got a Masters in Public Policy, I've got Bachelor degrees in Commerce and Business, I've got a Graduate Diploma in Corporate Governance and Risk Management, Diploma of Financial Services, and I've completed the Australian Institute of Company Directors course. What do I do for a day job? Well, I work in financial services and have done so for many years. Previously run small businesses. I have worked in politics over a decade ago. I also pull beers at the local pub and drive the courtesy bus to put myself through university. So that's pretty much who I am. I'm born and bred here in Lake Macquarie. Grew up playing footy, cricket. My wife and I met at Newcastle University. We've been together nearly 15 years. We've got 3 little kids, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old. My wife, actually, she grew up on the western side of the lake at Marmont Point and Wood Rising. I grew up at Warners Bay and Valentine. In terms of my priorities, so that was the big question. If successful at the election, I really want to steer into our housing issues here in Lake Macquarie. So I'd like to have a housing forum whereby council invites key stakeholders. That could include the development industry, affordable housing providers, union leaders, obviously local civil society organisations like this one here, key politicians, pretty much to see how collectively we can differentiate Lake Macquarie from the other 127 LGAs across the state. There's a housing crisis. I think everyone's conscious of that. We need to stare into it and be part of the solution rather than simply burying our heads in the sand. So I think that's a big ticket item that I'd like to try and assist with. Other things, I can't let it go. I know John Gilbert down there will be talking a little later about freezing rates. So, for me, that's a bit reckless. It's quite dangerous actually as well. If you look just to the south, Central Coast Council, they're just coming out of administration after 5 years. It's really important that we rise above it. I think it was Councillor Pauling last night said that council is serious business. It's a $280 million budget, $110 million capex, billions in assets. So yeah, we've got to keep that front of mind as well. I was doing a little bit of housekeeping, if you like, this afternoon. In terms of our rates over the last 4 years, they've increased by 13.8% over 4 years. So 13.8% increase. In terms of construction costs, the materials themselves, if you think steel, wood, concrete, over that same period, they've gone up by 60%. So, you know, that's a 46.2% difference. So effectively, even with the rate increases that we've had that are set by IPA, the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal, we're 46% behind where we were, you know, back in, you know, FY 2022. So that's something to be mindful of. I don't think there's any justification to freeze rates. Yes, we need to do what we can with the money we have and be sensible, but yeah, that's a no-brainer for me. What will I bring to being Mayor of Lake Macquarie? Well, I think I've got the energy, as I said, I'm 40. I'm empathetic and try and put myself in other people's shoes. And I'm hungry to continue trying to improve Lake Macquarie and make it a success. Kay Fraser's been the Mayor for the last 8 years, and I'm hoping I can you know, build on that going forward. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Adam. Before we move on to questions, just a cautionary note, presenters, to all the presenters, you're here to present your platform, not necessarily denigrate anybody else who may be making a presentation. Now, do we have any questions? Over here.
I don't think we'll get that far.
You might have to just come forward a little bit. Now, I'm asking that each questioner, if you could just give your name and where you're from.
Marshall
And
to the Chair, to Mr Schultz. During meetings at the Council, I went to everyone recently, and the one thing was that the Great Wash, those poor people stood at the back, never heard one word that was said all evening because the microphone was turned down. I asked for it to be turned up 3 times. Didn't happen. So we never heard anything of the discussion. Will you keep implementing that process of not letting the people hear what's being said, or will you ensure that anybody that's present can hear every word?
thank you, Adam.
Yeah, I don't have a mic, but I'll
Oh, you will? In a minute.
Yeah, I can't speak to that instance. Your councillors they're not in charge of the microphones, but of course we want everyone to hear.
I believe the Mayor is.
In terms of, I think the Mayor has the button where they can switch off a councillor or put them on. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, I don't know about the volume. I've chaired a couple of meetings as Deputy Mayor, so you get a light. It's like, you know, you're sitting in a spaceship, if you will. The light comes on, Rosie wants the call, I tap to Rosie, it goes to Rosie. Once Rosie's finished, I will, you know, turn it off and I would go to, you know, Councillor Gilbert, if Councillor Gilbert makes it back, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's pretty much the way things are done. I don't really have anything else to say. I'm not familiar with the incident or instances of this occurring, but of course, you know, I want to hear what councillors would have to say if I am successful at being Mayor, the same as I'm sure they would want to hear what I have to say. So yeah, I obviously don't have a problem with that.
Okay, thank you for that. Graham, in a minute. We'd like as many questions as possible in the 5-minute period.
Really short, Graham Conforters from Kirrabong. Over and over and over many years of living around here, I keep hearing West Ward and the 4 cousins of Lake Macquarie that we often get neglected, that we get forgotten about, that it just seems like we're on the back burner. This will be something that all of you probably would want to address. What are you going to do to really look after, as well as the rest, but really look after the needs where we often feel neglect?
Microphone's coming.
think wherever you go in the city, if I go out to Swansea, you know, the bottom end of the lake, they would say something similar, or Catherine Hill Bay. If you come to Morisset or Cooranbong, they would, obviously that's what I'm hearing from you. In terms of West Ward, it's a big area. It's the biggest area in terms of, you know, by geographical area and location. In terms of what we're looking to do over the next 4 years, so at Toronto, been investing a lot in Toronto. The bars are set to open, I believe, in October. We're investing in a Wobber house at Borrigal, which burnt down about 5 years ago. Other things, so the Rathmines Youth Precinct, the pump track, the BMX pump track, skate park, half basketball court, where obviously with the Wangi Caravan Park there, that is undergoing significant renovations. We're going to have an influx of tourists, if you like. If Cedar Mill, you know, becomes what we all think it's going to become, you're going to have people travelling up here, and those tourists will want to stay, you know, close by. And Wangi Caravan Park being within 10, 15 minutes of the Morisset area, we are going to try and upgrade the footpath, the shared footpath there, to make sure that there's a continuous footpath between the shops at Wangi and the caravan park, because if you've got tourists who don't know the area, who may you know, be recovering from a hangover or not after a big night at a concert, you want to make sure that they're off the road and they can get to and from the shop, so that's a sensible solution there. And then just generally, you know, trying to improve the livability of, you know, the western side of the lake, the eastern side of the lake, the northern side of the lake. But yeah, we'll look to do whatever we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question there. We'll probably make this the last question to Adam, but go ahead and listen.
Great, thank you, John. And thank you, Adam.
And you're living, and you live in Cooranbong.
Oh, sorry, Linda Chapman. I'm living in Wellington Park in Cooranbong, but I'm also involved with the Morisset Hospital Bowling Club, the Lawn Bowling Club. So I'm aware that work has been done to relocate the Mayoral Bay Rec Centre to Piggery Hill for some years. They've been working on that. But there's a chance now for that to be relocated to the hospital grounds. I understand that the Premier, the Speaker of the House and the Minister for Police were there recently to look at that option. Are you aware, Adam, of those negotiations, and what's your role and what's your position on how that centre, which would be the Morisset Sport and Rec Centre, would operate?
Thank you for the question. I might just preface it by saying, hey, I was fully supportive of Kay Fraser in her efforts of trying to effectively save Mayoral Bay Sport and Rec Club. She was quite adamant that was the right thing to do. The Minister has come back and said that no, the Mayoral Bay site will be demolished, and that they are looking to build a new sport and rec facility at the Morisset hospital site, as you said. Have I had any direct involvement? No, I haven't. In terms of advocacy going forward, I think it's now time to move on. You know, the West needs a sport and rec facility. I remember spending some of my best childhood memories at Mayoral Bay Sport and Rec Camp, going there for football or band. It gives kids an opportunity to develop, you know, social skills, their independence, being away from home. I really hope that any facility that is built does have overnight accommodation, and I'm not sure, you know, on face value if the Morisset site is, you know, going to encompass that or not. But after what's it been, 5 or 6 years now, I think it's high time that the state government get on with it, and, you know, the West, all of Lake Macquarie, you know, have a sport and rec facility. And if that's at the Morisset Hospital, that's at the Morisset Hospital. And as you said, if you've got the Premier, Greg Piper as the local member, and the Minister Hunter all saying that that's the best site, you know, I believe it is, and let's get on with it. It's them, you know, with the checkbook from Origin. Let's see it.
Thank you, Adam. And now we'll move on to Rosemary Dawson, an independent. And thank you. Let's welcome Rosemary.
Thank you. Yes, Rosemary Dawson. I've been living in the Southwest Lake area of Lake Macquarie for 24 years. I brought my children up in Morisset district. I have 4 kids. I've been involved in the community since I arrived pretty well. Not long after arriving with my 3 boys at the time, I said to my then husband, I have since divorced, and you go to the Chamber of Commerce and I'm going to go to this group. We'll get ourselves involved in the community, get your business going, and from there I produced the first tourism brochure, I produced the first the first Business Excellence Awards for the area. It was not long after that a derelict indoor sports centre in Morisset was sitting vacant and was going to be bulldozed, that I got in touch with the PCYC and got council involved, and that negotiation went from 2005 to the day it opened in 2011, and that was without being elected. I was elected on the Lake Mac Independence ticket in 2012 to 2016. I served on council committees. I have been on just about every local committee, including the Football Club, and being the founding president of the South Lake Business Chamber and Community Alliance. I'll declare that I am a member of the Currumbong Business and Community Alliance as well. It's the only remaining business organisation in this area. So that's a bit of background. I have an executive certificate in local government. I have elected member skill set certified. I have diploma in business and in administration. I worked for 10 years managing the police and citizens youth clubs that I established, and I established all of the programs there, built the membership from 100 to 800, and started all the programs, the pickleball and the basketball and the futsal, and I worked with everybody's kids for all those years, and it's been a privilege. I was town centre coordinator for 8 years, and I ran the local Christmas events, the street fairs, a number of wonderful events that no longer occur, unfortunately. And that's just a bit of background. There's more detail to that. If I were to be elected, I would focus a lot on this area, but also on the whole lake. There's some areas, other areas that also miss out on infrastructure, and that is a lot to do with council's delivery of the developer contributions and the plans, and the unfortunately really slow delivery of those plans. So that money is sitting in the bank. What triggers it to actually be budgeted for and delivered is a complicated system, very complicated. It relies on population growth and so forth, but I see it going at a snail's pace, and I see things on the delivery schedule not happening for many, many years, and they all need to be reviewed again. They were reviewed in 2021, it's coming up to 2025, they need to be reviewed again. The Toronto plan is ancient, it hasn't been reviewed at all. We have pretty fresh ones in Morisset, and the other ones are Glendale, North Lakes, Charlestown, Belmont and Northern, and the North Wallara Peninsula. Those plans are integral in funding our infrastructure. That is where the money is. So I will look very closely into how we can bring those projects forward, get them budgeted, get them in the operational plan and delivery plan on a yearly basis, so that they are delivered much more promptly. Do my best to do that. Housing is, as Adam said, a very important aspect. I understand Newcastle Council require every development to have 15% of it as affordable or accessible housing. I'd like to look at moving a motion in council to ensure that new developments do have components of accessible housing. Ooh, that's quick. And I also am wanting to ensure that the footpath strategy is much more directed at delivering the actual footpaths. There's so many missing footpaths in this district, particularly on the peninsula. There's a missing footpath that should have been delivered in 2015, and the shared pathway that was meant to be delivered in Corumbong ended up being put through a private property. So thank you very much. I really want to make some changes, and I'm your local independent. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Who'd like to be the first to ask Rosemary a question? Right over here. Just remember your
Ella from Cameron Park. Both Adam and Rosemary have talked about housing. I live at Cameron Park and it's exploded in the years that I've lived there. What about infrastructure? What are you going to do about the roads and the traffic jams and the fact that we don't have a lot of shopping centres or community areas?
Thank you. Again, the developer contributions plans is, I think yours is in North Lakes. I'm not absolutely familiar. I know the Morrison one back to front, so I would look into what needs to be delivered for you. It's been recently developed. It delivered the Sugar Valley Museum and Library. It's a huge asset to the area. Are there footpaths up there, as in footpaths that take you through the whole,
I'm talking about the roads, like infrastructure. Me, my road cannot be widened. The traffic flow is shocking. You can't get from Glendale to Cameron Park in half an hour in peak. 45 minutes some days.
Yes, so they're state roads. So council would work with the state government to deal with all of those problems. For instance, the intersection at Spears Point is on the cards to be upgraded. There's a lot of there's been call for input into those plans. That's one area that I find is quite a bottleneck up and down the west side. I'm not familiar with your routes, to be quite honest. I don't go up there as often as I would like, and I hope to go further. But yes, all of our roads are absolutely congested. So working with the state government to deliver upgrades is absolutely vital in my term.
Thank you for that question. Another question? Yeah. You might have to come forward.
Hi, Rosemary. It's Karen Burge, Morrison Park. I just wanted to know if you were aware and what you could do about the complete loss of passive foreshore recreational land in Lower South West Lake Macquarie. Are you aware that with no consultation, we lost our golf course and evacuation centre for the Silver Mills, large tourist centre? And I know it became private. We've been locked out of our local foreshore, managed council land at Trinity Point foreshore for years with the development house fencing, with no development taking place.
You'll need to
So the foreshore of Morisset Hospital land that you've spoken about, the water access, that's actually our Morisset picnic grounds on state conservation land run by National Parks, and that's the water access to the Mayoral Centre. Now, that we're still being told that that was only a temporary lockout until they could stop the tourists feeding the kangaroos. No one in the area has been consulted about being offered up for state conservation. So we just are losing
Could
more.
you please come to the point?
Basically, we're losing our recreation and tourism, and with no consultation. What can you do about that? And the Morrison bypass.
All of the foreshore remains public open space. It's state-owned down at the hospital. The state has closed the hospital. It's something we can advocate for, but I can't tell you exactly how it could be changed.
No, but it's been offered now up for the Marina Bay Replacement Centre.
It's been,
are now offered up as our foreshore picnic grounds is now being offered up as the foreshore.
no, it's Hunter New England land has been
No,
offered up, not the foreshore.
Excuse me, you're
The
talking
foreshore
to me.
remains public
You're talking to
property.
me.
It will remain public property, and the Hunter New England held lands has been offered to State and Rec for the Mayuna Bay Sport and Recreation Centre. So it's mainly the oval, if you know the hospital, the oval area, the bowling club area, and the recreation area of the hospital is being looked at. It's got a lot of contingency plans to be put in place first for a Mayuna Bay type facility.
So it won't have all the water access.
It will have water access, but it won't be taken away from the public. It's public open space. It is owned by the public, and Greg Piper worked very hard to keep the public open space around Trinity Point as well. So all of that foreshore is public.
I'm just going to close down on this question. And could I request that your question not take more than 30 seconds? Because we spent more time with the question than with the answer. Is there anybody else who would like to ask a quick question to Rosemary? I think we've exhausted ourselves. Rosemary, a round of applause. And now we have Melody Harding, representing the village.
Thank you.
Can we give you a clap?
Oh, yes, please. Good evening, everyone. I'm Melody Harding. I'm the Liberal mayoral candidate for Lake Macquarie City Council. I was born and raised in Lake Macquarie, but I currently reside in New Lambton Heights. It's a bit far away from Westward, but I spent my formative years growing up in Toronto, just outside the Toronto Yacht Club, and then we moved to Belmont North. I have very fond memories of Toronto and Coal Point Road, Kilburn Bay, where my granny lived. Back in the day, before there was development, and she actually named her little property Melody Farm. I have one daughter and two beautiful grandchildren, so I am not telling anyone my age. My qualifications, I have a Bachelor of Economics, a Diploma of Education, and a Masters of Educational Administration and Leadership. The role of Mayor is one of leadership. The Mayor is the principal member and spokesperson for Council. I have the professional skill set with strong interpersonal skills and an organisational edge that will help to operate a council that's focused on the needs of ratepayers, both residential and business. I have a wealth of experience across both the public and the private sector, including in education. I also run a small business. I'm a marriage celebrant. I believe in Liberal values. I have a vision for Lake Macquarie and a Liberal team that will take that vision forward. I believe Council can do better. There's always room for improvement, and I believe it's time for change. My main priorities: applying Liberal values, refocusing Council on its core responsibilities of rates, roads and rubbish for both residents and our businesses, pragmatic development that provides for the needs of our ratepayers within budget and on time, improved transparency, accountability by Council, improved communication and governance, support for our small businesses, for our jobs growth and for investment, and in community engagement. How can these things be achieved in reality? Well, I like to refer to the 4 or 5 words of what are our priorities, the why are these priorities important, the how are we going to get them done, who is going to pay for them, and who is going to be involved, who they are for, and who they might impact upon, and when they're going to happen. All done and determined through consultation and collaboration. I'm committed for standing up for the hard-working, everyday, aspirational people who simply want to improve their lives and the lives of their families. Thank you.
Before we move to question, I'll just ask the Chairman, are you satisfied that the question you put at the beginning, the leading question, has been addressed thus far?
Well,
Repeat it.
the question is, what will your priorities be in the 4 years if you're elected? And how will you achieve these priorities? Now, the question I ask is Adam Schultz has mentioned that he wants to establish housing and that, and the inflation has gone up a lot, 60% on building, 13 point something in rates.
13.8.
Have you had any plans to cut costs? Have you mentioned that? Would you like to respond to that?
I don't want to cut Melody's time.
We've got some questions here.
All right, who wants to follow their question?
Well, I think you've made a good point. We're happy to hear you presently, but it is time for questions for you, Melody. And who'd like there's a hand up over here? Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Through you, for Melody. My name's Anthony Swinsberg. I'm from Kilburn Heights.
Oh, hi, Anthony.
But I'm also a councillor candidate, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
So, Melody, if you were the mayor and you had the opportunity to rebalance the current budget, which currently is about $380 million, what would you rebalance and why?
When you, thanks, I won't use my school teacher voice, thank you. When you ask a question about rebalance, can you expand on that a little bit more for me, please?
Sure. So, over the last couple of years, it's been, as I said, running on $380 million.
Yep.
We are bursting at the seams with growth.
Yes.
We need infrastructure, which comes in many forms, but the budget has been, I guess, is kind of partially dissipated over a number of areas.
Yeah.
And whilst it might meet certain needs in cultural areas, connecting communities and this sort of stuff, but at some point in time, we have to refocus and actually have priorities.
Thank you.
Right, so what are they for the
Yeah, good. Thanks. Thank you for the clarification. You're quite right. The Hunter region is one of the fastest growing areas in the whole of the country. It's growing at a rapid pace, and certainly our infrastructure appears to be falling behind. You mentioned roads. The one road in and out of Cameron Park. It's I know what it's like because I drive that road fairly often, so I understand where you're coming from. And I agree with you in that we need to address the allocation of the budgets into certain areas, and that needs to be reviewed. Couldn't agree with you more. I think we also need to advocate very strongly with our state and federal governments in terms of money being poured into this area so that we can get the necessary infrastructure. I worked in Sydney for a while, and you all know what the traffic is like in Sydney. And I moved back to Newcastle and I was quite shocked at the change in the amount of traffic. Now, we can't stop the change. We don't want to stop the change, because with change comes the opportunity for jobs growth and for investment. And we need to encourage that. We also need to have that basic infrastructure. So yes, we need to rebalance our budget and focus our attentions on that necessary infrastructure. Not just roads. I often ask the question about, well, what about hospitals? We can't all rely on John Hunter. I'm sure it's under the pump. And yes, that is a state issue, and we need to advocate very hard with the state government. Fine and dandy. Have your plans for housing, have your plans for growth, but that growth needs to be supported. and at the moment it seems to be not very well supported. So we need to be very strong in our approach with our state government and our federal government to get the extra funding, to do what we need to do and address the balance in the budget. Thank you.
Anybody else like to ask a question over here?
Thank you very much. My name is Gwen. I'm from Coombe. And through the chair, I'd like to ask, you mentioned, and I don't know that I've got them all or the order is correct, but the what, the who, the when, the how, all of that kind of thing. I'd be interested to know what kind of strategies you would have in place to ensure appropriate consultation is done with the community when things are changed within that community.
Thanks, Gwen. In my career in education, I was involved often in consultation processes as they related to large projects in the education space. And what I found very often that the consultation process was a bit more like a lip service sort of thing. It was a ticker box. It was more a complaint processing approach. So I would like to see consultation be more valid and more of it, a lot more consultation at the various stages of major projects that occur. So that's what I would like to see. Consultation that is valid and consultation that happened a lot more often with the stakeholders involved.
Thank you, Melody. Let's show our appreciation. Now, when the chairman asks for a clarification, in this case from you, Adam, we wouldn't bypass you. If you keep it to a minute.
Do you just want to rephrase the question, just so?
Well, you're spending a lot more money on housing, I'll take it. That's your plan to have.
Not directly, no. We're going to try and encourage, private development. I'm not saying councils going off and investing directly in housing, no.
So you're talking about increases in cost 60%.
Construction
rates up 13-point-something%. That's a lot of big increase over a few years. Have you got any plan to reduce these costs? And you were talking about rates, freezing rates before. Can you not freeze rates?
We are not freezing rates. So IPART, the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal, New South Wales, they peg rates. So they tell us the maximum amount that rates can be. If you look at our budget, so I think it was Anthony mentioned $380 million, 280 of that is our operating budget and the other 100 mil is CapEx. In terms of the CapEx, so 50% of our CapEx, or $50 million, is generally on new assets, 50 million is on replacement of assets. So we've just got to be more strategic in terms of what we're doing going forward. If you look at, the last, what's it been, 12 years, so 2012 through to 2019, we had an SRB where we increased, an SRB is a special rate variation, where rates went up, I think, in the vicinity of about 6% per year between 2012 and 2019. Coming off the back of 2019, COVID hit, 2020, there was a lot of state and federal government grant money floating around that we could look to leverage to prop up our Section 711, our CapEx. But going forward, we just need to be mindful that we're going to be building less because we just don't have those rivers of financial excess, if you will. If we've got 13.8% of our rates in terms of that's the rate that's gone up, and you've got construction costs increasing at 60%, something's got to give. And when I say construction costs, I wasn't talking about housing. I was talking about, new pools, new libraries, playgrounds. These are things that the community demand of us. And yes, we've got a growing population, and we've just got to be strategic and think about it. We can't simply grow our asset base endlessly going forward. That's what I was trying to get at.
Okay, thank you. A thorough answer. We now move along to John Gilbert, our local representative. Please welcome.
Thank you. I like the question, what am I going to achieve and how am I going to achieve it? Not the exact wording, but it's along those lines. What would I actually achieve as an outcome as mayor? Now, I think it's critical to understand, and I appreciate that, and we've got some very qualified people, as you've noticed here, as candidates for mayor. I appreciate there's a lot of talk about policy and so on. But the mayor is probably one of the most critical positions that anybody holds right throughout the city, especially in Lake Macquarie. Now, the mayor is not like a normal councillor. Normal councillor works about 20, 25 hours a week. It's like a part-time job, and they have a certain contribution to council. But the mayor is full-time, probably more than full-time. If full-time is 40 or 50 hours a week. The mayor holds a linchpin position and has to lead those councillors, has to lead a team of 12 councillors, all from different political parties, with different aspirations and different ideologies, rather like herding cats. I hate that expression, but it's the only one you can apply to it. Now, I've been there. I've been a councillor for over 5 years, in the previous term. I've also operated and managed a business for nearly 3 decades previously with a fairly diverse staff. Many of them more temperamental than councillors are, and that's really saying something. So I can say that there is capability on my part, certainly, to lead that team. Lead that team to be coordinated and collaborative, and not just make decisions by having full-on bun fights on the chamber floor of council, but actually working together to come to great decisions for the community. That's what democracy is about, and that's what good coordination is about, and collaboration. The other thing is dealing with the CEO. The CEO is actually the real leader of council. That's the person who really runs council, not the mayor. The CEO, and fortunately Lake Macquarie City Council's got a great CEO with Morven Cameron. When I was doing my term, 2016 to 2021, Morven came on board, I think, after about the first year, and she's a great CEO. I know I can work with her. In fact, when I was finishing up on council and coming near the end of my term, one of my notices of motion, that's what councillors come up with, it's called a notice of motion. It's when you develop something that's going to benefit the community, either start a new initiative or fix something up, and I think in my 5 years, I don't know, I lost count how many notices of motion I had. Schultz here, no, I don't know, what, 30, 40, something, I don't know, I've lost count. So when you're working pretty diligently, you're pumping out these notices of motion. Well, the very last one that I brought up was in collaboration with the CEO, with Morven Cameron. And it was quite a big one to virtually establish a township to the west of here, out past West YE. So I know that I can work with the CEO. Now, what about working with the community? That's a critical one for the mayor. The mayor's got to be able to speak to big audiences. The mayor's got to be able to be ready to receive different groups and different group leaders and deal with them with some empathy and be able to understand what they're about. In my line of work over the last 3.5 decades, and especially with the job I have now for Urban Daytime, I do exactly that. So I have that experience. Not only that too, but I think council's gone a little bit off the rails. We have this group called the 100, which is 100 people handpicked by someone in council, and they were picked for some reason. And these people are basically surveyed or interviewed. I don't know, this came on after I left. And they provide recommendations to councillors about all kinds of things, anywhere from Macquarie Hills to YE. Somehow this group comes up with it. One of the first things I would do if I was mayor is disband that group and shut it down. It's not a good idea. You can't have 100 people who is your sample group for 200,000 spread in such a huge area. Gee, even Westward on its own is vast. Have a look at it on a map. Someone at the top end doesn't know what's going on at the bottom end. So I would get rid of that and go back to the pop-up community consultation installations that we had when I was there, and I attended dozens of those, where we go to a specific area where something has to happen, and we are there to speak with the public directly. I would encourage all councillors, as mayor, to go back to the grassroots, get out to the parkland, get out to the shopping centres where there's an issue, attend those pop-ups along with council staff so there's some expertise there to back them up, and that's how we get community consultation going again. I think I'm out of time by the sound of that. I hope I wasn't too reckless, if that's okay.
Thank you, John Gilbert. And last night, Kate Warner was the first cab off the rank.
Questions?
Questions? Beg your pardon. Too excited. Questions? I do apologise, John. Hope I didn't scare you off. Up the back.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Jason Pauling, in terms of declaration, I was here last night. My question is to Mr. Gilbert, and once again, acknowledging we've butted heads in the past. So, John, I read on your policy this freeze rate rise increases in domestic fees for 2 years. We've had some discussion about that, and I think it's only fair that you be challenged on that as irresponsible, and I ask you to defend how you would address current projects and deal with this. And I suppose through you, Mr. Chair, I charge you with defending what I would put is an irresponsible one.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for the question, Jason. How's your head? All right, mate. Good headbutting going on. Irresponsible, reckless. Look, I can take the criticisms. Look, as far as freezing rates for up to 2 years, and there's a strategy behind it, a fairly complicated one, let's take into account that right now, Australia is going through the biggest cost of living crisis that we've seen since the recession that we had to have, apparently, of the early 1990s. It's absolutely titanic, and it greatly affects the people with the lower income up through to the lower middle income brackets, most of all. And I see it with my day job, with the people I'm working with. The cost of living crisis is crippling people. So, state and federal governments have great solutions. First thing is they work with the Reserve Bank, and the Reserve Bank pumps up interest rates so everybody's costs go up. Then they have a lousy energy system, so everybody's electricity goes up. Then they do some strange things with privatisation of power over the last dozen years or so, 15 years, so that private institutions are in on the power generation, and now we're paying heaps more for power. Everything is going up all over the place, and it seems that the solution to the cost of living crisis is for everybody to have their grab at getting more money and just keep pumping prices up. The only way it's going to stop is for people to take the right kind of action and start and hold prices. It's a bit of a pipe dream to try and bring things down, but the first step, realistically speaking, is to get prices held. Now, government's got to start and show some initiative on this and actually make an example of things and show a good example. Lead a good example, work a good example, and that means starting to freeze prices. It can be done, and if anybody tells you from government that you can't cut costs or you can't hold costs and that it just can't be done because the bureaucracy, whoever they are, sitting in the back of the office and never in the media says that it can't be done, that's rubbish. When I was on council, I led an initiative that ended up working where with social and affordable housing, we reduced the 7-11 fees on the development of that kind of housing to assist low-income people to get into housing. we reduced those 7-Eleven fees by 85%. You were there, Adam? You were there, Jason? 7-Eleven fees down 85%.
15.
85. Okay, whatever.
This is like a tennis match.
No tennis match. Those fees came down significantly. A guy called Wes Hain worked on those. He did a great job. Prices, costs can be brought down. Now that was way before we got into a cost of living crisis. Right, so we need to take action on these things, and I believe it's reckless and irresponsible for government not to take the lead and not to start and do something to address that cost of living.
Okay, we're warming up a little here. I will let you just respond briefly. And then we've got a question over here somewhere. Go ahead.
Three things. One, I don't think John answered the question. Second question, what will be the annual saving to individual ratepayers should you freeze rates? And what will be the impact on council's budget if you freeze rates? If you don't know those numbers, you don't know what you're talking about. Thank you, Mr. Goodman.
Is it possible to answer it under a minute?
Probably not.
Two numbers.
Do your best. All right, you just ask for 2 numbers.
We don't have those numbers yet because we, if you look at IPART as to what they're going to do as far as increasing rates go, IPART, the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal, actually set rates, or they set rate maximums for councils. It's up to council then to go ahead and implement those rate increases. The strategy we have is to work collaboratively, and I know I use that word a lot, with accounts management of council to ensure that we can hold those rates and look at the disbursement of cost savings throughout council. Council is 1,200 employees, it's a massive place, $380 million budget. I can tell you now, if you're going to start and increase people's rates, you can find ways to save money across our expenditure and to save the actual overall running costs at council. It's like any large organisation, it's a matter of removing the wastage, it's a matter of doing the hard yards and making that happen. I can tell you now, we have to start addressing the cost of living crisis, and that's only going to be done by especially government and large organisations taking the initiative and freezing costs.
Okay, we'll spend a long time on this question. There's a question, Mr. Chairman.
I'm on the export, I'll give it to see.
Okay.
Thanks, through you, Chair. So, just picking up on that then, John. So, in order for, let's assume that you put a motion forward to have rates freeze. I'm assuming you need to get it through pass-through council. Okay, so on the law of probability, there would be you and potentially 4 others.
Okay,
so how do you actually get it passed through council?
You're moving from a question to a statement.
Well, so my question is, how do you get it passed through council? How can you promise a financial-based policy when you know there is absolutely no way you can get it passed through council?
Thank you, John.
Thanks for your question, Anthony. That's a good one. Any policy that any party puts on their policy document has to be moved through council. So any one of the candidates here who's putting forward their ideas, and I've heard a lot of things put forward tonight, they've got to get that agreed on. I don't know what you mean about 4 people assisting. We don't know actually how many people are being elected from each party and how people are going to react to it and how people are going to vote. That's very speculative, saying 4 out of 13 people. But any policy is subject to a vote. That's just the reality of it. But you've still got to have policies. You've still got to have strategies that you're going to put up there. And I'm proud to say that our local community has a whole bunch of policies. There's a lot of people going into this election who don't have listed policies. But at least we do have them. We have strategies that we've thought out and that we're ready to fight to try and get through. I mean fight in a nice way, but to try and get through. So that's really what you're saying is subject to anything that anyone has discussed here tonight.
Okay, we're really running out of time.
This lady.
Just a moment, talk to me. I'll allow one more question and happy to hear from you.
Just full disclosure, I'm the lead candidate for OLC. Just for the purpose of clarification, if everybody has a copy of this, can you just have a look at our policy? It actually says freeze rate rises. A freeze on rate rises, not a freeze on rates. And to the 15 and 85%, the 15%, it's achievable. Well done, John, for achieving that reduction.
That wasn't a question. That was a statement. Okay, and you did have your hand up before. It's got to be quick.
John, you're a businessman.
You're talking to me, by the way.
I'm Matt from the Warners Bay, and I am, full disclosure, I am running for the East Ward for the Liberal Party. But John, you're a small businessman. You've talked about dropping prices. How are you going to get small businesses across the city to accept your proposal of dropping prices? And will you drop prices in your own business to help the city?
Well, that snaps everybody to attention.
I think every question comes from another candidate here tonight. Anybody here who's not running for council? No, actually I said freeze prices. I didn't say drop, I said freeze prices. I said it'd be great to drop it. As I said, I appreciate we've got to freeze. And I don't expect any specific small businesses to drop their prices, but we certainly need to freeze in order to stop the increased cost in living. The cost of living goes up, not because things freeze, not because things go down, because things go up. So we've got to stop the increases, and that's what it's about, is freezing increases. Sorry if you thought I said drop. I thought I said that I wouldn't expect people to drop. But what we have to do is stop increases from happening. And if small business can't afford to freeze their prices, then that makes things tough. That makes it very sad. But I did actually not mention small business. I said government has got to lead and big business has got to lead. We've got to set the example. I'm fairly certain that that's what I said. Let's set the example and let's get everybody.
I'll just come in there. I believe a question about your personal business is probably not apropos to this meeting.
Well, I didn't answer on behalf of my business. I just disregarded that part of it.
So we're going to close off there. Let's show our appreciation. Kate Warner, I've introduced you the second time now, so thank you for being patient and forgive me for getting excited. You represent the Lake Macquarie Independents, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you. This is the second night in a row, so we'll see how we go. So Kate Warner, Lake Macquarie Independents, independent mayoral candidate, been on council now for this last term. It's a shorter term. I'm 41 years of age, so I'm still a spring chicken, I think, maybe, but I tick the box in the next category, so maybe not. But I've lived a very full and varied life, probably more so than most people my age. I'm a Lake Mac local. I've lived here my whole life. My parents are small business owners in the area. I've gone to school in the area. My children go to school in the area. I'm qualified for this role. I'm a solicitor. I have a background in communications and arts degree. And I just completed painfully my Australian Institute of Company Directors course last year. I'm a mother. I think that qualifies me for lots of things, actually. And I'm a board chair of a large independent school here in Lake Macquarie. We have 150 staff, 750 students, and the buck stops with me. I've been doing that role as a volunteer for the last 7 years. I'm an advocate, and rather than tell you cheap words about who I am, and I'd rather tell you about the actions, the things that I have done. And I have served 18 years working for the most vulnerable in our society, speaking up for them, those voiceless in our society. And I'll continue to do so in whatever I do. As well as chairing meetings though, as the mayor, you are one of 13, you're not a dictator, you're one of a group. You are also the face of the community. And you are the face of the city. And in the role, you do get to meet a lot of people. And to be honest, it's the greatest privilege that I think that we have as elected representatives to go out and meet with the community and hear from them. I understand people, I get people. That's what I do. And I care for people. That's what I've always done. I'm a survivor. I'm not afraid of difficult situations. At the age of 31 years of age, I was diagnosed with bowel cancer, an old person's disease, and I survived it. My life and the actions I've taken since are a direct response to how I faced that as a young person. Life is short. There is not much time. We don't know if we have tomorrow, so it's about living today. And I've committed my life to giving back to the community. I think being a true leader is about elevating others. It's about elevating the community. And we have a great community here in Lake Macquarie. Former mayors, Kay, Greg and Jody have all been the architects of the city, and we're inheriting the legacy of that. I believe that we're seeing a transition in the city from what it's been to what it's becoming. And I think as the mayor, you have a great role to play in that. Leadership is about bringing people together. It's about networking and connecting. And I've demonstrated that throughout my life. I don't think that should come difficultly. I think it should come naturally. I elevate people around me. That's what I do. I network and connect people. I'm not about myself, but I'm about working together with others. And I work closely right now with the executive at Lake Macquarie City Council. They're the ones that make the operations run, and we need to work together. I'll tell you what you won't get from me, and I think that's evident in my proven track record. That's mudslinging, political gains, or pulling others down to make myself look better. Because in my opinion, it's a sign of weakness, and it says more about the person. I have 3 young children, 3 boys, and I'm trying to teach the ways of how to be a good citizen in this community. And I think people are over that. People are over the major political parties and their fighting, infighting, and the games. I think they see right through it. I think you just have to watch Question Time on ABC to see perhaps maybe what's wrong with our society. Our leaders should be setting the example for our next generation and setting the example of good behaviour from our leadership. As I said, true leadership is about elevating others around us. When we don't have the answers, we work together as a cohesive team. The priorities I would see is effective governance, and that's in my track record of working together with other candidates, other colleagues that come from different political backgrounds. Without it, we can't have progress. The other priority for me is about public transport, health, and housing. Health is a big one for me. We are a long way away from oncology services, and I know it firsthand. We're a long way away from emergency services, and if you want to try and get a bus to the hospital, it will take you 6 hours if you live down in the peninsula, and that's not acceptable. I'm less about what we can't do and more about what we can do. Let's use our leaders in local government to actually partner with those around us in other levels of government, in other organisations, and make change for the community here. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. I must say you've been an extremely attentive audience tonight. You've followed every word from every person. Now there's some questions for Kay. I'll just give the preference to somebody else who has most of the questions.
Ladies first.
I'm sorry?
Ladies first.
He's a gentleman.
He is.
We'll let you go for 20 minutes.
I actually something that John brought up, but I think all of you have kind of brought up, is what you currently do. And John brought up the fact that it's a full-time job being mayor. I'd love to hear an answer from everyone, but I'm going to broach it with Kate. Are you willing to give up your current job to stand as mayor if you get wrong?
Thank you. I think this is a full-time gig, absolutely, and yes, I'm prepared to give up my job to do this job because I think it deserves a full-time responsibility. As a councillor, we do the best that we can. in amongst juggling our other responsibilities. And we need to be a part of the community as well. It's important that we're a part of the community doing our volunteering work as well, not just for our status and our titles, but our genuine desire to serve the community. So we need to do that as well and juggle that. But the mayor is a full-time role and I'm committed to that. Yeah.
Thank you for that. This gentleman here.
You said you had a staff of 150 and you're the chairperson of that school. How do you think that has prepared you to take on the role of being a leader within council? And your experience as a family lawyer, are there any overlaps that you can bring to council as the mayor?
Thank you. Absolutely. I think I've had to lead the school through a lot of changes. We have HR, we have all sorts of different challenges, and I have been the mouthpiece. I do a lot of public speaking, I do a lot of chairing of meetings, I do a lot of oversight of governance, and in my role as a solicitor, I meet with people and I hear people's stories, and then I try and seek to find a problem, seek to find a solution to their problem. I think there's a difference between listening and hearing. We can listen as counsellors, we can get your email and we can just respond, and a lot of people do that. But I actually take the time when I get an email to actually go and try and find a solution for you, because I don't think you don't want to hear the bureaucratic response. If you wanted that answer, you could have got it from operations. So I'm a problem solver. I will, if you come to me with your problem, I'll go away and find out another answer. And if it's about, if there's a need for it to reduce the fee, or you've got difficulties with that particular matter, I'll go find that out for you, because I don't believe in just giving you the answer that perhaps operations are prepared to give you. As a solicitor, you're trained to actually meet with people, advocate, listen and respond.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you. Okay, let's show our appreciation. The hour is, just hang on a minute, please, Peter. The hour's getting on, but I think we just have time. If somebody would like to ask a general question to any one of the candidates, that'll snap them wide awake, didn't it? And
my question, I already asked.
Yeah.
Hang
I
on.
want that answered across the board.
Yeah, no problem.
Before you commit though, I'd like to be a bit unorthodox. I'd like to be a bit unorthodox. We haven't had the pleasure of the Greens candidate here tonight. And I think that's a little bit unfair on all the other candidates, because...
you might have to raise your voice.
Sorry.
No, for them to hear you.
Well, I think it's important everyone in the room knows who the Green candidate is.
They were given full invitation, same as everybody else, and they chose not to come. So you've got to be a question, and I don't know if they're going to hear it.
Well, I'll speak loud, and perhaps others, but we just need to be very clear that the Greens candidate is a 20-year-old uni student activist. Okay, he has been an activist for the last 5 years. Okay, and I'm quite serious here. It is we will allow the Greens to get into this council, in particular into the mayor position, we will have activism brought into this city.
Okay, I did say at the beginning, we aren't going to denigrate anybody, and that person is not here and not able to defend himself, but you made your point.
Yeah, sure. I'll just implore everyone to look it up.
And one final question.
Well, I would just pose my question to the whole panel of are you willing to give up your current work to take on the role of mayor across LA?
Another first question, and you don't have a microphone, a yes or a no?
Yes.
It's not a yes or no answer from me, but I'm happy to elaborate.
You've had a good session tonight. Can you do it in 30 seconds?
I think I can do it in 30. Yeah.
25.
25 to 30, thank you. I'm on. Yep, cool. I have taken 12 months leave, so yeah, I'm taking the mayoralty serious. In terms of my candidature, as I said, 5-year-old, 3-year-old, 1-year-old, I can walk and chew gum at the same time. As has been said, I think by Kate, the mayor is effectively the chair. You're out 7 nights a week representing the city, I'm not due to go back to work, I think, until May next year. So if I am successful, I'll have 8 months under my belt as mayor, and then I'll make a conscious decision, if I do have any capacity whatsoever, to do additional work.
Thank you. Rosemary.
I'm currently not working. I'm semi-retired and I'm volunteering, so my full capacity will be put into the job. Thanks.
Seth. Oh, you're not.
Yeah, full-time commitment from me.
I think I touched on it. I think mayor's a bit beyond full-time. It's not a 40 to 50 hours. There's weekends, there's evenings, there's public holidays. Even as a councillor, you're pumping 20 to 25, I found. So, and that's a councillor, which is a part-time, supposedly part-time job. So, I think...
Answer the question yet.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that answers the question. It's more than full-time. So I can't work a full-time plus more than full-time.
You talked about running a small business.
No, I don't know. I used to run a small business, so I work for a large company now, managing a large village. So I actually don't work in my own business now. No. So the last 5 years I've managed that business.
Thank you.
For a separate owner.
Okay, I think you might have already answered the question. Would you like to say anything else? I hate to cut you off.
I think it's a privilege to be able to take the role. It's the leadership role as the head of the city, you're the face. So absolutely taking it completely seriously and would sacrifice personally and sacrifice financially and maybe even professionally, stepping back from my role, but to do the role well.
I'm just going to ask Marvin to sum up the 2 meetings and then we will move towards the close.
Okay, thank you for attending at least one meeting. We had one other meeting last night. That was the councillor candidate meeting, and we had all councillors of groups turned up, and they all had diverse policies, but they were all very well elocuted, and tonight we've had another 5 candidates, and there's 6 altogether, and we would like to thank them for coming and expressing their views. So now it's up to you to make your decision, and I hope we've given you more opportunity to make a good decision and be knowledgeable who to vote for.
Thank you, Marvin. Marvin has put a huge amount of work into these 2 occasions. He's had to negotiate, he's had to ask, he's had to go back and forwards, and we just want to thank you, Marvin, for what you've done. And a little clap for his son. Now I would like to thank the candidates. It is no small thing to come and speak to a group. You have no idea whether they're going to be friendly or hostile or what kind of questions they're going to ask. But I would say collectively, you have done admirably, and thank you very much. Thank you.